In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Christ is among us. Now the Passover of the Jews was at hand, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. And he found in the temple those who sold oxen and sheep and doves, and the money changers doing business. When he had made a whip of cords, he drove them all out of the temple with the sheep and the oxen, and poured out the changers' money and overturned the tables. And he said to those who sold doves, "Take these things away. Do not make my Father's house a house of merchandise." Then his disciples remembered that it was written, "Zeal for your house has eaten me up." So the Jews answered and said to him, "What sign do you show to us since you do these things?" Jesus answered and said to them, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." Then the Jews said, "It has taken 46 years to build this temple, and will you raise it up in 3 days?" But he was speaking of the temple of his body. Therefore, when he had risen from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said this to them, and they believed the scripture and the word which Jesus had said. Now when he was in Jerusalem at the Passover during the feast, many believed in his name when they saw the signs which he did. But Jesus did not commit himself to them, because he knew all men and had no need that anyone should testify of man, for he knew what was in man. After coming back from the wedding of Cana in Galilee and going to Capernaum and spending time with his disciples, the Passover came, and the Lord, like any good observant Jew, went to Jerusalem to worship at the temple. When he entered the temple in the court of the Gentiles, he found the money changers and the people selling sheep and oxen and doves. And he made this whip, and he drove them out, and he cleansed the temple. Once again, in a very masterful way, St. John the Evangelist introduces us to a major theme of his gospel. The major theme of the cleansing of the Jewish religion. The Jews transformed their relationship with God into a religion, into things that they had to do in order to please God. Indeed, in the Old Testament, God required animal sacrifices. Why did he do this? Because especially in those times, it was very hard to raise an oxen, a sheep, or a dove, and then not to eat it after feeding it, taking it to pasture. When you see these big oxen, which could be good for work, and then to butcher it and to eat it eventually. No, you give it to God. By doing this, people were giving of themselves. This was the idea of being healed of my selfishness, so that I offer myself and of my life, of my livelihood, to God. Also, all these animal sacrifices were meant to prepare humanity for the one and eternal sacrifice of the Son of God, of the fatted calf, as we could see in the parable of the prodigal son, when the father butchers the fatted calf at the return of the prodigal son. The fatted calf was nobody else than the Son of God prepared, who prepared himself to come and to give his life for the life of the world. But when the Lord goes to the temple, he finds what? He didn't find people raising animals at home and bringing them, and the best animals, the spotless oxen and sheep and doves, to the temple to offer them as a personal sacrifice. No. What he finds is people who commercialized the faith. He finds people who are raising animals specifically for the reason of selling them to other people who would buy them where in the temple and then take them to be sacrificed. The Lord didn't like that because they turned his Father's house into a house of merchandise. What could we learn from this? Before I go into what we could learn from this experience, I should also tell you why there were money changers at the entrance into the temple. Because in the temple, they could receive only Jewish money. Because only Jewish money were acceptable to God. This is what they believed. Money, Roman money, they were Gentile. Greek money, any kind of other money were Gentile money. It was not good for the temple because in order to be saved, you had to be a Jew. And your money had to be Jewish money. So this is why they were changing any kind of other money into Jewish coins accepted at the temple. This is why they also had the money changers at the entrance of the temple. Once again, the Lord didn't like this, and he drove them away. And he cleansed the temple, and as we could see in the rest of the Gospel of John, the Lord will deal so much with the religious people who did not understand the real message of the revelation of God, of becoming one with God the Father. So what could we learn from this cleansing of the temple done by the Lord with that occasion of the Passover in Jerusalem? You know, not too long ago, a while ago, in fact, a few years ago, I saw on the website of a Greek Orthodox church an advertising for a bake sale. And the logo was, "Shop until you drop." Okay. Another time, I saw on the website of another Greek Orthodox church an advertisement, for a Greek fast, and the motto was, "Eat, drink, and be merry." I mean, don't you know that the full man from the gospel said that? Eat, drink, and be merry because, now you have enough goods. They're using this advertisement, for a Greek fast. Eat, drink, and be merry. And many other, sometimes, you see on the websites of churches advertisements for bingo, for auctions, for cars, for you name it. And you know what? We do it for a good cause. Niccolo Machiavelli was an Italian philosopher who, his philosophy was that the aim excuses the means. So if you do it for a good cause, for a good aim, it excuses the means. You could do whatever you do. If it is for a good cause, it's okay. Machiavelli was left in the history of philosophy and of humanity as not a good philosopher. We have to be very careful ourselves what we do in our churches. We are called to give of ourselves. Because we don't know to give sacrificially of ourselves, of our livelihood, many times we are forced to fundraise and to do whatever it takes to raise money for the church. We have to be very careful about that. We have to be very careful, especially when the fundraising becomes the main activity of the church. We have to be very careful if more people, or if the Greek fast week becomes more important than Holy Week, we have a problem. There is nothing wrong about having Greek fast. I volunteered here on Friday and Saturday. There is nothing wrong about having people together and having a Greek fest and celebrating the culture and presenting the faith. But if we make that the main goal of the church or the main activity of the church, we have a problem. We have to be very careful not to transform our churches into houses of merchandise, because they are called to be houses of prayer. The church is to be supported through the sacrificial offering of the people, as much as we can. With whatever God blessed us, the first fruits go to Him. This is how it was done in the Bible. We give to Him the tithe or whatever we could give, and then the rest is for us. But the first fruits go to God, so that we could keep His house a house of prayer and of worship. So that when we come to church, we don't have to worry about fundraising. So that we could leave all earthly cares outside the door of the church and forget about the earthly cares and worship God and become one with Him. Glory to the Father, and to the Son,